The all-new Seahawks podcast. We're here talking about the New England Patriots game against the Seahawks coming up this weekend. We're also going to talk a little bit more about the Atlanta game as the Seahawks got off to a winning start to the 2020 season. Rob Staton with you, Robbie Williams as well. Robbie, we've had a few days now to sort of sit back and reflect on a collector's item, a fairly comfortable Seahawks win without any heart attack moments at the end. Have you got a thought on that game, a few days on now?
Yeah, I mean, I went back and watched it again. I really like the way we came out and threw the football and the way we were running the screen game. I really do think the defense played pretty well. I mean, overall, considering we made the Falcons abandon the run game, and their first 7 carries or 6 or 7 carries, they were averaging like 7 yards a carry, and that was a little nerve-wracking at first. But I mean, then they locked it down. Yeah, they had to abandon the run in the second half, but I feel like they also, they had to switch it up because we were putting points up, and it was nice to see our offense come out and really put it to them early. And I feel really good about this team, and I like where we're heading.
I think there were a lot of positives, as we talked about the other day. I was having a look. I've watched the game again myself in the condensed version, and I've had a look at the PFF grades as well. And we're going to talk about those in a second, but Russell Wilson, I think, was the second highest graded player in the league. I think just behind Aaron Rodgers, who had a fantastic game against Minnesota Vikings of the weekend. Bobby Wagner was right up there with a near 90 score in PFF, which is borderline an elite performance. Jamal Adams was just a little bit behind him, but those two players with Russell Wilson, they're the key to the season, aren't they? If they continue to play at such a high level, the Seahawks will be tough to beat this year.
Yeah, I mean, Jamal Adams is that guy was incredible. I mean, going back and watching him play again, I mean, and again, just seeing the way the guys feed off of him and the way people are gravitating towards, his attitude and the way he plays the game and how he approaches it. It's really fun to see. And I mean, I'm starting to feel like this was a steal for us. I mean, this is a guy who we need to lock up now. This is just, don't even worry about what the money is. Just go do it. He's going to be an excellent football player for us.
If you lock him up now, though, Robbie, he's going to want Jalen Ramsey money. He's probably going to want that anyway, isn't he? I mean, let's talk about that. How much would you be realistically willing to pay him? Because I think the highest paid safety it's about $15 million a year. But Jalen Ramsey's on about $20 million a year, which is the highest paid defensive back. If Jamal Adams plays like he did on Sunday, you cannot expect to turn around to him at the end of the season and say, we want to make you the highest paid safety. You're going to have to turn around to him and say, that Jalen Ramsey contract is the framework from which you build on, isn't it? Because there's no way that he is you could classify him as only a safety in terms of value.
No, I mean, he does it all, right? He's more than just a safety, but there's a way you could swing it, making him the highest paid safety at $17 million a year, but you add more guarantees in, or something to sweeten the pot a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I could see them definitely going up above 20 for him. He's that good.
The trend with these contracts, when you trade multiple first round picks for players, we've seen with Laramie Tunsil, his contract was something like $5 million more expensive than the next highest paid offensive tackle. And Jalen Ramsey gained, I think, another $2 or $3 million based on the highest paid cornerback. When you do these deals, you lose all leverage when you don't have a deal, up and ready to go when you make the trade. The Seahawks are going to, I think it's realistic they'll end up paying him $20 million a year because he will say, well, look, you've got no negotiating power. I've got all the negotiating power. I want $20 million. And the Seahawks probably will find it very hard not to go with that, because the last thing the Seahawks want a year after making this trade, especially if he plays as well as he looked at Sunday, is some big contract wrangle, for the whole year, which is a distraction, which then has people questioning whether Jamal Adams is going to be there for the long term. There was a bit of that with Jalen Ramsey and the Rams. They got it done a few days ago. So hopefully the Seahawks can maybe get it done a bit quicker than they did with Ramsey. Right. I want to talk a bit about the defensive grades for PFF before we talk about big game against the Patriots this weekend. And I've already mentioned that Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams graded very highly. KJ Wright graded a 71.2. Now I'm going to put the numbers up here on the screen, and and people can see exactly what constitutes a good grade. a bad grade or whatever based on how PFF have described their grading system. And I think that the numbers that I want that sort of attracted to me straight away, Robbie, and I don't want to beat a dead horse with this, it's the defensive line, the starting defensive line, and a couple of defensive backs that I want to talk about. Starting defensive line, Jaron Reed, 60.6. Poona Ford, 58.7. Benson Mayowa, 56.3. LJ Collier, 55.7. All of those scores are in the lowest bracket for PFF. That is a replacement level grade. In fact, Jaron Reed is he's at 60.6. He's like as low as you can be without being a replacement level grade. For me, that highlights the fears that we had going into this season, that as much potential the Seahawks have with some great players and some great complementary players as well, they just do not have enough on that defensive line for me to feel fully confident that this could be like a 12, 13, maybe even a 14-win season with a deep playoff run.
The thing is going in with only 3D tackles and 4 defensive ends. It's hard when you're talking about PFF grades. I don't know how they're ranking it. I don't know what their scale is for giving these guys those grades. I think we need to keep in mind that we played a really good Atlanta Falcons offense. I mean, I don't care, like you said. We could have thrown Jadeveon Clowney in there. Everson Griffin would have looked a lot better. But those guys, I think that they still would have put up a lot of yards on us. I think that's the case. I don't think there would have been anything that would have been that dramatic of a change. I don't know how the grades are how they list those grades. But going back and watching the game, you're not getting a big push. They had to throw the ball 50 sometimes though, so I could see maybe them thinking that they get a lower grade because they're not getting that push, not getting that pressure on Matt Ryan. So I could see their grade going down for that. Again, I think the first 6 or 7 runs, they put up, like I said, 7 yards per run, but then after that, I feel like they locked it down. And granted, in the second half they kind of abandoned the run altogether. But again, I feel like they kind of locked it in. Linebackers play better as well. You see Bobby, who has a 90 plus grade, coming in, making a lot of tackles or being in the right place. He's helping those D-line guys out. So that's where they're going to work together. It's an 11-man team, or 11-man on the side of the defense side of the ball. So they all have to play together. And some are going to get bad grades, some are not. My
biggest concern though, Robbie, is you are absolutely right. The Falcons are a good team, and I think it's true. If Jadeveon Clowney had been playing on Sunday, and even if Everson Griffin was bookending him, I think the Falcons would have got quite a lot of yards. And I'm going to come on to why in a second. But my biggest worry is that when you're playing the 49ers, for example, the 49ers have probably the best defensive line in the league, even now that DeForest Buckner's not there. You look at the Cardinals, they do a lot of crazy things up front, have done for a number of years, and they've got Chandler Jones. And you've got that big beast, Aaron Donald, playing for the Rams as well. Now, when you are playing those opponents, and that's 6 of Seattle's games this year, are you going to be able to stick 38 points on those opponents? Are you going to be able to apply scoreboard pressure to them, which maybe lessens the pressure on your pass rush to be disruptive, to create pressure, to force mistakes? Because I think that certainly helped against Atlanta. Atlanta were always chasing the Seahawks in that second half. When the Seahawks got ahead of them, they abandoned the running game, stuff like that. If it's the Seahawks who have to chase, are they going to get run on? Is Russell Wilson going to get pressured a bit more? I just don't think that. I'm concerned a little bit that if you don't have that scoreboard pressure, then this defensive line is going to cost you some of those games, which will impact your ability to win the NFC West. And then when you're in the playoffs, it could be a season ender, because they're just in those close games when you need somebody to step up and make a play. The best way to describe it is you don't win in Santa Clara without Clowney last year. Now, if you put a very tepid pass rush in that game, I'm not sure the Seahawks win that game, which was a vital win at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is possible, right? It would be foolish to say like our defensive line couldn't cost us a game. But again, I'm going to go back to it's scheme, it's game plan. How well are we game planning for these opponents? We put ourselves in a really good position with the Atlanta Falcons that they had to chase us. And I'm not going to say that, we can't come down from being down 14-3, and our defensive line won't be able to hold up. I'm concerned about the depth of the defensive line and having a rotation. I don't think we have the best starting defensive line, that's for sure. I would love to see some depth in that so we can get some good rotation going. But I do think we have a good football team. This is a team, when they start to play well together, you've got good linebackers that can come down and help stop the run. You can rush 3 and drop back 7 instead, or drop back 8, whatever you need to do. It's how you game plan against each individual opponent. So going into Santa Clara, we might not put up 38 points, but I mean, we were just talking about this for the podcast. How good is Jimmy Garoppolo? Is he going to be able to put up that many points against us? Maybe our defensive line isn't that good, but look at the offense that we're playing against as well. So it's really about game plan and scheme and how well they go about attacking each opponent's weaknesses.
The other issue that I had slightly on defense was the zone coverage, Robbie. And I had another look at this, and I didn't really notice it during the game. Obviously, you could see that Atlanta were making plays, and I kind of just, while watching the game, put it down to the pass rush. But then actually watching the game itself, Marquise Blair, there's a few times when he's just not quite there. He's not quite read the play, which is why he wasn't playing last year, because he just not quite picked it up. The scheme and what he was being in the right place at the right time. He's like this all the time. It's just nearly there, but he's not there. His grade for PFF was a 44.9. That's an abysmal grade. Quinton Dunbar was a 40.6. I know, look, with Quinton Dunbar, he's had a very challenging offseason and preseason. He's not really been there a lot. I think you can give him a pass. I think that he needs some time to settle in. Shaquille Griffin doesn't need that, though, and he was only a 52.1. And Quandre Diggs was a 53.8. So that is 4 of your defensive backs. Jamal Adams was amazing. Leno Hill, 65.8, played well. I thought he played well when we spoke after the game. He was up there. He was grading, I think he was after DeMontre Moore and Jordan Brooks and Wright and Adams and Wagner. He was up there with the highest graded Seahawks defenders. But you have 4 defensive backs there who, per the eye test and now per these grades, didn't play well. And if the D-line is what it is, Robbie, the DBs have got to step up. And if Shaquille wants to get paid, and if Quinton Dunbar wants to get paid, and if Quandre Diggs wants to get paid, because he could be up for a contract in the end of the season, and if Marquise Blair wants to start instead of Leno Hill, they've got to start. This has to be just some ring rust.
Yeah, I mean, again, no preseason games. I'm gonna chalk it up to that. I'm gonna give Blair a pass as well. I do think eye test, it seems like he was there a lot of times. He might have been a little bit late. I do think like the turnover he had was huge. But yeah, you could see he, playing his first time in a nickel position, he was a little bit out of place. And I feel like you got to give him a pass as it being his first game. And he didn't even get any preseason games to play in the nickel position, and yet he's thrown out there and told to go do it. So I still feel like he played, all things considered, he played a fairly good game. I really don't care what PFF says. In my eye test, it looked pretty good. So I'm happy with, I see growth and potential for him. But honestly, my eye test with Shaq was not good. I mean, I felt like he had a really rough game. I think like they attacked him a lot. He gave him a lot of yards. I know there was that one crossing route where him and Jamal Adams ran into each other and they scored the touchdown. I don't know who that was on, but I mean, again, maybe that's just like working together in that preseason and not quite, knowing each other yet. But yeah, for me, he seemed to have a rough game, and I'm going to give Dunbar a pass as well. He just, not being around the team the whole offseason, and a lot of distractions. Hopefully things will start picking back up. I mean, shoot, I thought Trey Flowers was starting the football game until like 30 minutes before the football game. I didn't even know Dunbar was even going to play. So the fact that he started and played, I'll give him a pass. So and Diggs, I think Diggs is a great football player. I really feel like he came in last year and was helped us solidify some of that safety stuff. And so I give him a pass as well. Just, I'm going to chalk it up to preseason. Hopefully we'll see, I think this is the Atlanta Falcons is one of those teams, like this is one of the better offensive football teams we're going to play all year. You start looking at our schedule and you think, who's better than Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley? Like those two are studs. And, you got Matt Ryan back there throwing the football, who's no slouch by any means. You got to, he's a former MVP. You've got football players on that side that can make plays. So this is one of the better offensive teams. I'm going to give them a pass on that.
Also need to give you some kudos. Robbie, you predicted that the Seahawks would win in Atlanta, and I said it would be a loss. So we'll say that's a 1-0. So Robbie, I've got a feeling that the predictions for this week might be fairly similar. But let's move on to the New England game. I'm feeling pretty confident about this game from a Seahawks perspective, Robbie. I wonder how you feel. I suspect, like I said, it's probably going to be pretty similar. I'll tell you why I feel pretty confident about it. It's the reserve list that I'm now looking at for the New England Patriots. Because people may have seen this, it may have passed them by. There's been a lot going on in the world over the last few weeks. When the league said that you could opt out for the season, it was strange. The New England Patriots, it would seem like every day another player was opting out and entering the COVID list. So you have got Brandon Bolden, Marcus Cannon, the tackle, Patrick Chung, Dante Hightower, Matt Lacoste, Marquise Lee, Najee Turan and Danny Vitale all opting out for the Patriots. Damian Harris is on IR. Quincy Adebayo is on IR. Bo Allen's on IR. Michael Barnett's on IR. Yodny Kajust is on IR. Brandon King's on the PUP list. This is an incredible list of players that Bill Belichick is without now, and it's impacting their depth. There are starters missing there. You never, ever go into a game against Belichick thinking, well, this is going to be easy. You just don't. When they had Matt Castle filling in for a year in, 2011, didn't they win 10 or 11 games? I think they beat the Seahawks that year in Seattle. So, you can never rule anything out. But at the same time, Robbie, if the Seahawks are serious about being a contender this year, this has to be a win, doesn't it?
No, it does, and I feel like it's going to be. I think we both agree. I think this is a very winnable game, and I think we're going to win this football game. Bill Belichick is the best football coach. I mean, he is. You just listed off a number of players who would be starting on pretty much any football team, and he has his guys ready to play. And his scheme, he does a really good job of game planning for each individual opponent, and so. I think it's going to be a tough game. I don't think this is a cakewalk by any means. I think it'll probably be pretty close. At the end, we have Russell Wilson. They played Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's a huge difference between the quarterbacks. Fitzpatrick had 3 turnovers, and Wilson played lights out. And I feel like being our first home game, granted, where there's no crowd, I just think it's going to be. This is, and it's Sunday Night Football, we seem to shine on those kind of the prime time lights. So, I feel like this is a game that we're going to win.
I have to say, I do like Bill Belichick. I know that's, it's kind of not the done thing to say those kind of words about Bill, but I think he's crafted almost like a villain style heel persona, which he knows exactly what he's doing. I mean, I just love that meme of him walking out of the tunnel in Detroit and the kids have got their hands out and he doesn't high five them. And, and they put the wrestling music to it as well. It's just hilarious. Just everything about him. And then he'll just do something unpredictable, like a Subway advert that there's a Subway commercial right now. And you just think that's, he knows exactly what he's doing. And he's had an amazing amount of success. I think he's a great aspect to the NFL. I don't think the NFL would be the same without him. So a lot of respect for him. And when I say that this should be a win, I'm not taking anything for granted there at all. And the thing that sort of, if there is one thing that worries me a little bit, Robbie, it's that Bill Belichick, it's the Super Bowl against the Rams a couple of years ago. Now, nobody had been able to stop the Rams. If you remember, this was the year when they beat the Chiefs like 100 points to 98. This was, in Mexico when they played that game. Did it end up in Mexico? It may have even been in LA in the end. I don't know. But you know the game I mean, when there was like 100 points in the game. They were beating everybody. They were just this machine. You couldn't stop them. They got to the Super Bowl. And then didn't they score like 3 points in the Super Bowl? Because Belichick just came up with this scheme with safeties and multiple safeties. The Seahawks have almost certainly looked at this with the way that they're playing this year and how to try and combat the Rams. And they were lining them up and they took away all the misdirection, the stretch stuff. It took away a huge aspect of what the Rams do. And I'm sure a lot of teams probably used some of that information in the Rams' disappointing year last year. Now, the Seahawks have suddenly they don't have the surprise element anymore of let Russ cook in Atlanta. So Bill Belichick's got a game tape to pour over this week. And it does worry me a little bit if all of this great positive energy that the fan base has got because the Seahawks have turned it over to Russell Wilson and are letting him take control of things now. I just hope that it's not going to come crashing down at the hands of the greatest coach that has ever lived this weekend, because he has just a little wrinkle or a scheme thing or something that really stalls the Seahawks into doing things they don't want to do.
So one thing about Belichick, like you said, he game plans well, but you know what Pete Carroll does? He makes excellent second half adjustments. So let's say game plan comes out and it's not working, we adjust. And I think our second half is where we're going to shine, right? They come out, they're trying to let Russ cook and it's not working. You guarantee Carson and Hyde are going to have big games. They're going to start running the football, running some screen passes, doing a bunch of things, some sweeps, whatever it might be to throw them off. They're going to adjust their game plan. And so that's what I think Pete Carroll will come back and say. So that might be an ugly first half. Or maybe we come out and score 3 straight possessions again. I don't know, but it's. I do think this is a game that we should win. But I do have the same concerns. Like Belichick he's a mastermind. He knows what he's doing. So if anybody can slow Russ down, it's going to be him and the way he plans.
I remember a few years ago, the one thing that people used to say about Belichick was that what he will do is he will find the opponent's best player on offense, let's say, and he will try and take them out of the game. Now, I remember when the Seahawks last played the Patriots in Foxborough, he zoned in on Jimmy Graham. This was the game when CJ Prosise had his one good game. It's when Cam Chancellor and Rob Gronkowski had like an earthquake in the end zone at the end, and what a battle that. If you'd have said before that game, this is all going to come down to a play between Cam Chancellor and Rob Gronkowski, brilliant. So what a game that was. But Jimmy Graham had, I think, like a catch for 5 yards or something. They took him out of the game, and what the Seahawks did is opened it up. Were very creative, used the running back as a pass catcher. They kind of kept Prosise quiet because he's been injured, and all of a sudden they unleashed him in that game. So it was a really good plan from the Seahawks there offensively in that game. I wonder if, because you can't take away Russell Wilson. You can't just say, if you could just take Russell Wilson out of the game, everybody would do it. So let's assume that Russell's not going to be counted here. Who do you think Belichick will look at on this Seahawks offense, if indeed he is thinking I need to take away their best player? Who do you think he would zone in on of the Seahawks offensive skill players?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really have no idea because, if you look at Russ's stats, he threw to 9 different receivers. How do you figure out who they're going to throw to? I mean, we line up in the 2 tight end set with Disley and Olsen. Who you planning on stopping? You got Lockett and DK on the outside, or whatever the case might be. Like, I don't know who you try to attack, and then if you have Hyde or Carson in the backfield. And I don't know, are you running, are you throwing? I mean, they could mix it up a lot, and this is what I really liked about this last game, is that it was such a variety, and you let Russ do his thing. It wasn't like forcing the ball to Jimmy Graham or forcing the ball to Percy Harvin or anything like that. It was like, just go and find the open guy, and that's what he did. I mean, 9 different receivers got the ball, and they're 9 different players, and yeah, I don't know who you target. Like, you try to shut down DK. Well, Lockett's going to be open. Like, I mean, Olsen's going to be open. Disley's going to be open. This is a tough one. Yeah, I wouldn't really know. I mean, maybe the only thing I would do is try to put a spy on Wilson just in case.
I've got a few thoughts on what I think might happen, Robbie. Again, going back to the other game in, I think was it 2017? Was that the year they played the Patriots and won on the road? I think it probably was. So when the Seahawks played that game, I remember what the Patriots did is they put everyone in coverage. They were very deep in coverage. A lot of 3-man rushes, very little pressure up front. Wilson had an awful lot of time in the pocket. And what he was often doing, he had a great game, Russell, in that game, could move the ball really with ease, was he could just extend plays, people were uncovering. He was getting targets, 4, 5, 6 seconds after the snap. And then they were also, because there was a lot of coverage in front of Wilson, that's how they could use Prosise, get the ball to him, get him outside, stuff like that. I'll be interested to see if Belichick does that again, because when they did that last time, they lost. But when I look at New England's strengths on defense, it's coverage, isn't it? it's coverage. It's not the defensive line. So I think if they come out and attack with the defensive line, that's probably not going to work. Their best players are in coverage. Are they going to flood coverage again? And my thought with that is if that happens, I think it's going to potentially be a game where you run more than you did last week because the opportunity will be there. The Patriots will give Seattle an opportunity if they have fewer numbers up front to run the ball effectively. The other thing will be, can they get the running backs involved in the passing game again? I know people were kind of a bit frustrated to see quite a lot of Travis Homer in that Sunday game because Chris Carson and Carlos they didn't exactly have a heavy workload. So there was no real reason for Travis Homer to be out there. I think we could see a fair bit of him again, though, with some of those screen passes to the outside. I think we'll see Chris Carson used again very heavily in the passing game. I think he could have a 100-yard receiving game in this game, Chris Carson. I think that's something to keep an eye on. And I also think the tight ends, because I do think that when you have a lot of coverage, and it's not like they just have Jimmy Graham now, you've got Jacob Hollister, you've got Greg Olsen, you've got Will Disley. I think there might be some ways to sort of pick your way through those coverages, and on that second level, especially now Dante Hightower, have success in the immediate second level, in that short mid-range, rather than trying to take on Stephon Gilmore and that crew at the sort of the deeper edge.
Yeah, man. I don't really know how you stop this. We've got a lot of weapons, and you look at players like Stephon Gilmore, Devin McCourty, those kind of players that are going to be deep, and you'll have some stuff underneath that's going to be that's going to be open. And then if I was Belichick, I wouldn't really know how to stop this. I mean, maybe their plan is to kind of maybe the same philosophy: keep everything in front of you, don't bend or don't break, bend, hold them to 3. And see if he can get the points on the board. And it comes down to the other side, for us stopping Cam Newton. I was listening to KJR, or no, it was 710 the other couple days ago, and they had Bruce Irvin on, and he was like, 7 out of the 9 times I've played, or what did he say? 7 times I've played Cam Newton, I've gotten 9 sacks. He's like, I like my chances. I love that attitude. Good for you, Bruce. Like, go get it. I want to see him get a sack, and I feel like they'll get after Cam right after the gate. And our pass rush, is not the best, but I think we could really put some pressure on Cam and force him into some silly decisions. And I think you have to keep it. You saw him. He led the Patriots in rushing. You got to keep an eye on him. You got to keep a spy on him. Make sure, keep Bobby Cage or someone on him to make sure that he's not taking off and running when if we get past our defensive line and just go. So, yeah, on the other side of the ball, I'd like to see us just, really get after Cam.
Bruce Irvin is without a shadow of a doubt one of the most popular Seahawks, I think, of this Carroll era. Not necessarily because he was a legendary Hall of Famer like the Earls and the Bobbies and Russells and Cams and people like that. It's just he is a very great personality, and I think people like a bloke called Bruce, and also the fact that when he did the Zoom press conference a couple of weeks ago, and he was just dropping in casual swear words and nobody knew what to do because he was just talking like he did normally. No one knew what to say. Like, he wasn't live on the radio or anything, but he was just swearing away in his press conference, and I just found it. Maybe it was a bit childish, but I found it very funny. And no one said anything to him, so he just carried on. I could see him getting a sack. I think with Cam, it's funny, really, because aside from that one playoff game, when obviously they were like 30 points up at halftime or something, they've had a lot of success against Cam. I mean, obviously there was the game as well, wasn't there, when Carolina came to Seattle, 2014, 2015. That was 2015 as well, wasn't it?
15, yeah.
That was when they were 15-1, I think. So, they have lost to Cam, and Cam has played well against Seattle, and he's attacked the seams well against Seattle. Hasn't got Greg Olsen anymore, though. Always used to seem to have a good game with Cam. But they have had success. They've beaten him in Carolina a number of times. They've managed to corral him. I mean, what is the key for this? Because I know I've seen people saying on the blog, do you spy him because of his running ability? But I'm not sure that you necessarily need to do that, Robbie. With the speed that Seattle's got and with Jamal Adams in the secondary, I don't think you really need to worry too much about Cam breaking free. Not at this age. He's going to get some rushing yards. He's going to get a few 3rd and 1s. He's going to do stuff like that. The key is to not give up the big play with his big arm, and it's to sort of get a handle on the running game and not allow him to complement it. There's very little chance of Cam roaming his way to 100 yards and winning the game here on the ground and 200, 300 passing. it's about moderation with Cam in this game, surely, and just limiting the damage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you necessarily have to put a spy on him. I mean, I most certainly would, unless how comfortable are you with the with the linebackers staying in position. It's playing smart, disciplined football, right? If you're not getting out of position and allowing those big runs. I mean, he had 15 carries for 75 yards last game, and that's running back numbers, and I think as long as you're not allowing him to break free and picking up 5, 6, 7 yards every time he's carrying the football, you know, then you probably don't need to put a spy on him. But if he's starting to pick up those big chunk yards, then you start putting a spy on him.
Before we get into predictions, then let's it's just a couple of other things. The additions. I expected they might do something this week, Robbie, especially based on the fact that Alton Robinson was inactive, and then DeAndre Walker was inactive. And I kind of think if Alton Robinson can't get on the field, what chance has DeAndre Walker got? You might as well put somebody on the roster who's actually got a chance of having a game. Walker's not played for 2 years. I thought they might go out and get Clay Matthews. And personally, I was hoping for that because I wanted to see a hair off between Clay Matthews and Chase Winovich. We're not going to get that now. But I figured that the reason he's probably not here, because he was linked by Michael Silver a few weeks ago to the Seahawks, along with Everson Griffin. It must be a financial thing. Denver tried to sign him. He said he wasn't interested because they weren't offering him enough money. I suspect the Seahawks probably value him in the similar range that the Denver Broncos do, and he is not interested in that. And I just wonder, will there come a point when the Seahawks go, yeah, go on, we'll have a go? Because the thing you've got to remember here is any contract is not guaranteed. Even if you sign him for $6 million, the same as Everson Griffin right now, you could cut him next week and save yourself a big chunk of that.
Yeah, I was very surprised to see no one get signed. I mean, I figured someone would. I know they had a couple guys in for tryouts or whatever, but they didn't, not to sign anybody it's a surprise to me. I guess we're going to roll with 3 defensive tackles again this week and see what happens. Yeah, I was a little surprised also to see Alton Robinson not get a chance to play, especially with the hype surrounding him over the offseason and how well he was doing apparently. So hopefully he'll get to be active and we get to see some of that. Again, maybe it was scheme, personal reasons. I don't really know, special teams, whatever the case might be. I'd like to see the guy play. I'd also, you brought up Travis Homer, and for me, I don't want to see a sweep to Travis Homer on 3rd and 4. When I went back and watched it, that was right before that DK touchdown on 4th down, and I was like, why? Why was that necessary? That was like the most, like sometimes like the play calling like that is like you're overthinking that you've got this great, brilliant plan, and it just backfired. And I don't know why, and why you'd pick Homer as the guy to. And this is not a knock on Travis Homer. I think he's a good football player, and he's getting better. But I would like to see, DJ Dallas or someone like that in there as well, because you hear the hype about him. I want to see him. This is what we didn't get a preseason, so we want to see some of these guys. But I don't I don't know why I went to Homer, but I'd like to see, maybe some of these roster spots to ghost some of these DNs who could help generate a pass rush and get a rotation going. And, I don't know, it's not sustainable to have, Bruce Silver playing 80% of the snaps or whatever it was. I mean, I think they played pretty high percentages, and that's not sustainable throughout the year. You're going to have an injury, and, you definitely want to, protect those guys and use them when you need them. And, I was surprised that we didn't go get Clay Matthews. I thought we were going to have, Matthews in a Seahawks uniform, and it could be, money, who knows, or maybe it'll happen next week. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I was a little surprised we didn't pick up somebody.
I think with Homer, it's also strange because when you watched him at Miami, he's a smaller back, but he's very much between the tackles type of guy still. He looked like a Seahawks running back. He was not a speedy stretch kind of running back or anything. He played beyond his size. And yet because he's smaller than Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde, they seem to be trying to use him on a lot of these stretch plays and sweeps and, tosses to the outside. But he's really no better at doing that than probably, Big Chris or Carlos Hyde. There's no real reason to have him doing those. That's not really his game just because he's smaller. So, yeah, I was interested to see that. They have Breland Speaks in for a tryout this week. He's kind of an inside-out rusher. His highlights video at Ole Miss, I remember it was amazing. But then you actually watch the games and you're like, But he's kind of like a physical, agile length, quicker for his size than you'd usually get. I don't know if that's the kind of player the Seahawks need. I think they need a big body in that middle. who you can trot out probably in the first 2 quarters. Stout. Poona Ford's got his hands on his hips after about 3 snaps of the weekend. He's not in shape. You know, you need somebody who's going to rotate in with him and maybe absorb some of that early run defense pressure. Maybe there's a reason why the Snacksers and the Dariuses and that are not, you know, these are guys at the end of their career. But, for me, they should have drafted somebody. They should have brought somebody in free agency who could have been the Al Woods replacement so that you were not having to have this conversation now. But we'll see. You know, there's still time. And like I say, with no guaranteed contracts now, you can bring anybody in for any price and it won't cost you a dime if you want to move them on the following week. And I think the trade deadline is going to be big as well. As teams fall out of contention, there may well be some possible assets you can acquire from teams who just want to remove a bit of salary, make a bit of a saving. Quandre Diggs was an example of that a year ago. If you can pick somebody up for a 5th round pick who can have an impact like he did a year ago, that could be a season saver in a few weeks time. Right, let's have a prediction then, Robbie. I think we both think the Seahawks are going to win this game, but what do you think the score is going to be?
Yeah, I think this was going to be a little bit closer than last week. I'm going to go 28-25 Seahawks.
See, I could see a really tight game that doesn't, that maybe a bit like the Titans in 2013, a 20-10. I could see something like that, but I'm not going to go for that. I am going to go for the exact same score that the Seahawks beat the Panthers in the playoffs in the 2014 season, which is a 31-17. And I'm going to go a step further than that. I think Jamal Adams is going to have a decisive interception in this game, a la Cam Chancellor in that game. So I don't know if he'll take it back for 6, but maybe he'll just finish the game with a pick. I've just got a feeling that could happen at the weekend. So I'm going for 31-17. What did you go for? 28-25. 28-25. Right. We'll see who's closest next week. The one final thing I wanted to bring up with you, Robbie, is somebody messaged in the comments section last week and said that they loved the hat that you were wearing after the game. And I can see that you're wearing a similar retro. This is a cap as opposed to a hat.
Yeah.
And they said, where do you get your hats from? Have you got is there anybody you can plug for this, or where do people need to go?
I was waiting for someone to notice I wear a different hat almost every time. Let's see, what did I wear last week? The beanie?
Yeah.
Oh, the beanie. I just got that at the stadium. Yeah, so I'm season ticket holder, so I just, every time I go to the stadium, I always buy a new beanie every year, and I always buy a new hat. And I got this one last year, and I got that beanie last year as well. So, yep, it's the stadium.
You've been listening to Fashion with Robbie Williams here, the new podcast starting next week. Listen, I think it's been good. Good luck to the Seahawks this weekend. Let us know what you think. If you've got a prediction, if you think this is going to go completely different than we are, if you think there's something that we should have really talked about the Patriots that we've maybe missed out on, comment section, let us know what you think. Make sure that you like and share the video. We want people to spread the word. There are far inferior videos getting more views than us on YouTube. I'm just going to throw that out there. So we need your support to get a few more views over the next few weeks. So build the support. Let people know that we're here. Let people know that we're talking Seahawks. Don't forget SeahawksDraftBlog.com as well for more analysis on the Seahawks season. And we'll see you next time.